Hello everyone, I am Mr. Sharon. Today I am going to present about the wrist complex. The wrist complex consists of two compound joint, that is radiocarpal joint and midcarpal joint. The wrist complex is also known as carpus. This complex joint varies in structure between person to person. Very small changes in the wrist complex can produce a lot of functional imbalance. Function. The wrist complex maintains the length tension relationship of hand muscles. Now let's see about radiocarpal joint. The articulations are divided into two: proximal articular surface and distal articular surface. The proximal articular surface consists of distal part of the radius and radioulnar disc. The distal articular surface consists of scaphoid, lunate and trigutrum. Since the radioulnar disc covers the articular surface of the ulna, we don't consider the ulna as a part of the wrist complex. Proximal articular surface. The distal radius has a biconcave curvature that is long and shallow. The proximal joint surface composed of the lateral radial facet and medial radial facet and a triangular fibrocartilage complex. The lateral radial facet that articulates with scaphoid, the medial radial facet that articulates with lunate, the triangular fibrocartilage complex that articulates with trigutrum and some contact with lunate. The radioulnar disc is a component of triangular fibrocartilage complex. It is also articulates with trigutrum. The radiocarpal joint surface is oblique in nature and angled ulnarly and volarly. Ulnar tilt. The lateral end of the radius is slightly larger than medial end. The average ulnar tilt of the radius is 23 degree. Polar tilt. The distal end of the radius is tilted 11 degree volarly. The distal articular surface. It is made by proximal row of carpal bones, that is scaphoid, lunate and trigutrum. They are connected by ligaments. Scaphoid and lunate is connected by scapho-lunate interosseous ligament. Lunate and trigutrum is connected by lunotrigutral interosseous ligament. The ligaments as well as bones are covered by cartilage and they act as a single segment but not a rigid segment. It is flexible segment, that's why it can change the shape according to the need of the hand. Inconcurrence of the joint. Overall contact between the proximal and distal radiocarpal surface is only about 20%. Joint inconcurrence and the angulation of the proximal joint surface result in a great range of radiocarpal flexion than extension, and ulnar deviation is greater than radial deviation. Ulnar variants. There are three ulnar variants: neutral ulnar variants, positive ulnar variants, and negative ulnar variants. If the radius and ulna is almost in a straight line, it is called as neutral ulnar variants. If ulna is greater than radius in length, then it is positive ulnar variance. If ulna is less than radius in length, then it is negative ulnar variance. Ulnar variance has been associated with changes in the triangular fibrocartilage complex thickness. In positive ulnar variance, triangular fibrocartilage complex is thinner and it gets impinged. In negative ulnar variance, triangular fibrocartilage complex is thicker, but the stress at the radiocarpal joint is very high, which results in Kienbock's disease or avascular necrosis. Now let's see about midcarpal joint. It is formed by proximal row of carpal bones and distal row of carpal bones. The proximal row of carpal bones are scaphoid, lunate, trigutrum. In the distal row of carpal bones are trapezium, trapezoid, capitate and hamate. The midcarpal joint is not a perfect anatomical joint but a functional joint. The articular surface is highly varying with respect to each of the bones, so it is not a pure anatomical joint. The articular surfaces are reciprocally concave convex with respect to each bone. For example, scaphoid is concave and trapezium is convex. The proximal row is a mobile segment. The distal row is a rigid segment. In midcarpal joint, extension is greater than flexion and radial deviation is greater than ulnar deviation. It is exactly opposite to the radioulnar joint. Now let's see about range of motion of wrist complex. Flexion is greater than extension and ulnar deviation is greater than radial deviation. Flexion ranges between 65 degree to 85 degree and extension is ranges between 60 degree to 85 degree. Ulnar deviation is ranges between 20 degree to 45 degree. Radial deviation is ranges between 15 degree to 21 degree. Thank you.